Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So, a couple weeks ago, Fletcher spoke of gratitude, and it got the wheels turning in my head, because gratitude is something that I think I've overlooked in my practice. And we are told that gratitude is what takes us to the other shore. So I felt I needed to do some reflection on this idea of gratitude and what it means, and how it sort of comes forth in our practice. I think gratitude is a natural outpouring of abundance. And when I think about all that I have been given in this life, I'm astounded. I really am. I've been so fortunate. And when I realized that the spontaneous feeling of gratitude comes up. And then I begin to think of why. How is it that I got so lucky? And I started thinking about all the people in my life. And oddly enough, it was the women in my life that came to the fore of my mind, especially my mother. She passed away about a year ago, and if there ever was a person who gave selflessly and with warmth and love in her heart, it was my mother. And I'm astounded because from the very beginning, I was surrounded by that. By my mom, by my grandparents, my grandmother on both sides, my sisters. And, and eventually I found my wife who was of the same type. And then I found myself here at the Zen Center, and my teacher, Edo Roshi, fit that mold perfectly. Giving was second nature. And, I came across this practicing the 6 perfections and this idea of generosity and giving of oneself with open-hearted attentiveness. And that is what I have been surrounded with my entire life. And as I said, when you feel this coming at you the way it has, the natural reaction is to want to give back. And that's where gratitude comes in. There's so much abundance. And if we can learn to give with an open heart, as my mother did, as Edo Roshi has done, as the women in my life have done, that abundance starts to flow through us. And the natural reaction is to give and to serve each other. And that's the other thing, the other piece that I think is worth mentioning, is that gratitude is not something that is transactional. It's something that happens spontaneous and naturally when we are in a mode of serving one another. And for me, it's been an antidote to a lot of anxiety, a lot of distress. You know, I've often thought that, and I'm sure I read this somewhere, but if we're all serving, if we're all servants, then we're all being served. And of course, like anything else, being a servant takes practice. And what I've discovered is that Zen practice, at least for me, and I think for a lot of people who have spent enough time here, Zen practice offers the opportunity for us to learn how to serve. And I think the crux of service is letting go and getting lost in the abundance that's always moving through us. But it takes acceptance. It takes acceptance of what is happening in the present moment. And it takes responsibility, because what I've discovered is that in Zen practice, you are going to be asked a lot. You will be asked to look at yourself and see those things that you don't like about yourself. And, you know, it's a lesson, at least for me, that I've had to learn over and over again. And I think of Ryokan in his poem when he talks about implanting this idea, this learning that happens continuously. And if we look away from those things that we don't like about ourselves, then we can't be in a position to serve wholeheartedly and with an open heart. You know, in my job as a first responder, I've learned that even the little things can make a big difference when we are in that space where we want to serve with an open heart. I found myself in situations where, you know, people call 911 for all sorts of different reasons. But a large majority of people call 911 because they need someone to talk to. And so you learn to listen. You learn to listen without judgment, because it's so easy. It's so easy just to listen with an open heart. And it wasn't a lesson that came easy, but it was one that was very much worth the persistence. So I was writing down some notes as I was trying to think of what I wanted to say about gratitude and the practice of it. And there are a few things that I think are worth clarifying, because there's so many things that can trip us up if we're not present with what is happening in the moment. And one thing that our teacher has said from the get-go is that, you know, we're never alone. We are never alone. And so this is something that I've had to tell myself, because it's easy to get lost in whatever bad day I might be having, and looking to the people that are closest to me, looking to the people in the Sangha, it's very helpful if we are willing to turn towards those people who are there that want to help. The other thing that I wrote down, and this is, I think this is one of the things that really hits home for me as far as service goes, and that is there isn't a moment that goes by that we can't dive deeper into the Dharma. And I really think that service, looking at people's needs and where we can serve, is that gateway to doing that. And then lastly, I just want to say that I think we forget ourselves in service. And this is what one of Dogen's, what he said in Genjo Koan, that, to forget the self is to be enlightened by all the myriad dharmas. And when we forget ourselves, we don't carry ourselves forward. And in service, we forget ourselves. We can lose ourselves in service to another. And so it all begins with gratitude. Understanding that if I may, I think people who come here do so because on some level they know that they have been given so much, and now that it's time to start giving back. Does anybody have any thoughts that they want to share? That's where I'll stop.
Steve, is there a distinction between gratitude and the way that you're using the term and compassion?
I don't think so. I think that compassion is just as much an outflow of the realization of the abundance that we've been given. And when I see suffering and I ask myself, why are they in a position that they are in? And I think it's because of my job and what I see on my job. I ask myself, why are they there and I'm here? And I don't have an answer, but compassion, like gratitude, just seems to be sort of a natural response. It's never contrived in any way. Anything from online? Fletcher?
Where is gratitude expressed in the forms of practice that we do, the rituals and things like that?
Wow, I'm speculating here, but the Buddhas and the ancestors have sort of set all this in motion, and they've passed down from generation to generation this idea that if we're there for each other, everything is going to work out. And when I do the rituals, when I'm bowing and reciting the sutras, I feel that support from the Buddhas and the ancestors. I feel their gratitude. I feel their compassion for us. I feel this sense that they just want to see us happy and flourish as human beings on this earth. And so, you want, like I say, you want to reciprocate that. And so, it becomes this dance, so to speak.
Yeah, I think the echoes in the ceremonies that we do are almost always infused with expression of gratitude. And as you say, every bow, I mean, if you're not feeling some gratitude in bowing, think about that, and if you give it a try, it feels so good. And but also in Zen practice, I think we don't make it overly sweet. We don't put a cherry on it and syrup and stuff like that. It's very, it's kind of serious matter, this practice and gratitude. So, yeah. Thank you.
I can continue that.
Yeah.
I read recently a book by Shinshu Roberts, who was here not too long ago, when she was talking about compassion being something that naturally arises when one realizes that there's no separation between oneself and not only other people but all dharmas. And the idea that there's no separation, she says, this isn't an academic conceptual exercise. She says, in practice, there's no separation in the sense of that there's no self of anything. Nothing has an independently existing self. Nothing is permanent, and everything is subject to cause and effect, karma. And when you understand that those three things are true for every single dharma, every single phenomenon, every single person, being, then you realize that there isn't any separation between you and anything else in the sense of those things, and compassion naturally arises. And so in the same sense, gratitude arises in practice, in as much as practice is the practice of those things. Emptiness.
Yeah,
Permanence, cause and effect.
yeah, we can't escape that. We can't isolate ourselves, and that's that can create problems when we try to do that. Isolate ourselves from the whole, and it's impossible. So we have to go through. We have to reach out. Yeah.
There's in gratitude, I think there's a trap to avoid that's particularly pernicious if you're enculturated in a Western theistic worldview, and that's thinking that gratitude is an obligation, is something that is a duty. We've been given so much by God, and therefore we have to give back. So, can you speak to how you navigate around that trap and avoid falling into the obligatory gratitude?
Yeah. I think, like I was saying, genuine gratitude is spontaneous. And there's no premeditation of anything that would smack of transactional. It's like being in love. Nobody has to tell you that you're in love. You just know it. And I think with spontaneous gratitude and compassion, it's the same thing. You just know that what you're doing is right, and usually you know that it's right after the fact. It's like, and again, I go back to my work as a first responder. You respond to the need that somebody has to be helped, and even though we're trained to do that, and maybe you could say that it's part of the training, but I think if you do it long enough, you realize that you just do it because that's what we do, you know? And there's no second thinking about it. And that's how I get around it. I mean, the hard part is, you know, sometimes not staying present when something comes up, and then you get swept along with the crowd or whatever. So